fractional order.
Right.
So, yes, sir. So I am small introduction. First of all, I will do, sir, for you. So Professor Sukumaram, sir, is professor at IIT Roorkee. He has done BSc from the University of Madras, MSc University of Madras, and PhD from IISc Bangalore. And his research area is nonlinear analysis, control theory, robotics and control. He has supervised around 19 PhD students and currently running 6 PhD students, and he has guided around 50 MSc, MPhil and MCA dissertation. Sir has many projects and he has participated. He has conducted many QIP short-term, long-term courses, and uh, Sir has developed many courses like mathematical control theory and robotics and control. And Sir has courses on NPTEL in name of robotics and control, dynamic system and control. And Sir has published many papers, around 200 journals paper, and many conferences in reputed journal and conferences. So from this short introduction, I welcome you, sir, in IIIT Kota to deliver Atal FDP on the fractional order. Over to you, to sir.
Okay. So thank you, Professor, for the introduction, and I also thank you for inviting me to deliver this lecture, this prestigious program. So today's topic is about the fractional calculus and fractional differential equations. So it will be an introductory type of lecture only, basics about the fractional derivatives and differential equations. So I will just introduce various concepts which may be also familiar to most of the audience. So maybe it will be a kind of revision to.
So, sir, most of the participant want to basic thing only. That will be.
Yeah. So I think it will be, in that case, it is okay. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So in this lecture, we will see a little bit of history about the differential calculus and the fractional calculus, and a problem from where the fractional derivative has been identified with that problem, that is start problem. There will be a brief discussion on this only, not elaborate. And then we will see about the ordinary differential equation and related concepts, which will be extended to the fractional differential equations. So all the concepts of ordinary differential equation is extended to the fractional differential equations, and the applications also, all these concepts are used. So first we have to recall many things from ODE, and then we will do it for the fractional thing. Okay. So this history, brief history is even about 2,300 years ago, the concept of derivative is roughly known to the intellectuals like Archimedes, Euclid, and all these people, Apollonius. They know something about the tangent to a curve, and also that using that, so it is a concept of derivative, but they don't call it as derivative. In India, the astronomers like Aryabhatta and Bhaskara, in those years, even in the 500 AD time, they were able to develop concept of calculus. Actually, whatever is known today, such concepts were developed by these people also. And even the Rolle's theorem type of thing was also mentioned in those books. And then in the 16th century only, then Newton and Leibniz, so they have independently developed the concept of derivatives. Right today, what we know as differentiation, it was developed in the 16th century by these people with proper notation and proof, etc. And Newton has acknowledged that, yes, since he was inspired by the work of Fermat, which was about drawing tangents and all for curves. From that, he got the idea of the derivative. That is what he acknowledged. And he has used it in the mathematical physics, all the concepts, and he has developed a lot of theory in physics also. And Leibniz has developed the notations which we use today. Notations, and as well as he also independently developed the calculus. So Leibniz only has started the fractional calculus. He has worked on the integer derivatives, but he also thought what will be the meaning of the fractional derivative. If you can differentiate once, twice, thrice, and all that, can we differentiate a function half times and all that? He thought about it. So the fractional calculus started even at the time itself, during Leibniz time. But it was only remaining as question. He has not given any answer for that. But it took a lot of time, 200 years, to come out with some kind of definition. So the Tautochrone problem was also posed in the 16th century only. The problem is quite straightforward. We have to find... Hello? Is it audible?
Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
This problem is quite straightforward. That is, find a curve such that a particle which is descending along the curve will take the same amount of time wherever it starts to reach the lowest point. So that is the question. Even though it looks, I'll make the full screen, I think. View is. So this question is like this. We want to find a curve like this, and if a particle is sliding along this curve, and to reach the lowest point of this, it will take a time t. So if it starts from here or from here or from here, wherever it starts, it will take the same time to reach this point. So even though it looks like not possible, but it is actually possible. That curve is given by the cycloid. That was proved, and it was the derivation involves a fractional derivative, a fractional integral here, this one. So this particular expression will give the solution for the problem, and it was proved that the solution for this problem is the cycloid. The curve cycloid is given by this formula, x equal to this thing. Okay, so this is the solution of the problem. So from here, to give the solution also, it took a lot of time. This was question posed in the 16th century, but the solution came sometimes in the 18th century only, in terms of this particular expression. And we will see that this expression is nothing but a half derivative of a function. So that we will see. But before going to that, we will consider various things about the ordinary differential equation and Laplace transform, etc., which will be very much useful in the fractional order systems. Okay. So here we consider this problem. X dashed equal to Ax. It is a very simple first order differential equation, dx by dt equal to A into X. And all know that the solution to such problem is e to the power A into t minus t naught x naught. If you differentiate, you will get this equation. So it is the solution of this problem. And this is a simplest one, only one variable equation. But a system of equation, a dynamical system, is a system of equation given by this particular expression. A set of first order differential equations in n variables, x1, x2, xn. These are n variables and the derivatives are related by the right hand side. So you have a system of n differential equations. It is called a dynamical system. Any differential system written like this is called a dynamical system. First order system of differential. For example, this is the example of a dynamical system. So various real life problems can be written in the form of a dynamical system like this. So linear system. This one is a non-linear system because we have the product of the variables. It's a non-linear system. But if you consider only a linear system, then it can be written in the form of a matrix. The right-hand side can be written as A into X, where A is a n cross n matrix. X is the variables x1, x2, xn, the vector containing x1, x2, xn. So we can write this system of equation in the form of a matrix like this. And the basic, I think engineering mathematics, all of us might have done that. The solution of this system is e to the power A into t minus t naught x naught. Exactly similar. If A is a constant, here we write e to the power A into t minus t naught. So if A is a matrix, also we can do the same thing. The solution is written by this thing. E power A into t minus t naught x naught is the solution of the problem. Where e power A is defined like this thing. Exponential of a matrix is also defined in the same way as the exponential of a number. So e to the power at is this matrix, the right hand side matrix. And this can be computed. How to calculate the e to the power at? It is not possible to sum the infinite series. So we need a simple way of calculating. For that, we can use the diagonalization of a matrix. If A is a diagonal matrix, if A is diagonalizable, we know that we can find the eigenvalues and eigenvectors of the matrix A, and the D matrix is nothing but the diagonal matrix containing the eigenvalues lambda 1, lambda 2, etc. as given here. And P matrix contains the columns as the eigenvectors. Lambda 1 has the eigenvector x1, lambda 2 has eigenvector x2. So put it in the columns, we will get the matrix P. Then P inverse A into P will give the diagonal matrix. So here all matrices need not be diagonalizable. If a matrix is not diagonalizable, then you will get the Jordan canonical form. Because we know that if a matrix is nth order, n by n matrix, and if it has less than n linearly independent eigenvectors, then we cannot diagonalize it. So we cannot get the P matrix in that case, but we will get another type of matrix and we will make a Jordan canonical form. Okay. So here, if A is diagonalizable, we can write it like this. And so multiplying with P both sides and P inverse in the right hand side, we will get A equal to P D P inverse. Then A to the power n will be P D power n P inverse by calculation, and we will get the simple formula e to the power AT. That is what we want to calculate, isn't it? For the solution, we want to calculate e power AT. Instead, we can calculate e power dt, which is easy to calculate, and multiply with P and P inverse both sides. That will give the exponential AT. This calculation will become easier for the. Okay, so this is the way in which we calculate the exponential of the matrix A. And the solution of the differential system can be calculated easily. And now if the initial condition is T0 instead of 0, instead of 0 is the initial time, if it is T0 is the initial time as given here, then the solution can be written in this form, e to the power A T minus T0. And this particular matrix is called the state transition matrix. E to the power A into T minus T0 is called state transition matrix as given here. And it satisfies these following properties. Differentiate the exponential function, we will get A times the exponential function. So the e power A T also will satisfy the same differential equation. The given equation is dx by dt equal to ax. So in the place of x, if you put e to the power at also will satisfy the same equation. And if we put t comma t, that is e to the power a into t minus t. If you put e power 0, that is identity matrix that is given here. And so all these concepts can be easily verified. So the property of the exponential function is called the property of the state transition matrix. So similar concept will come for the fractional system also. That is what. Now, to go from the ordinary differential equations to fractional differential equation, we need the concept of the Laplace transform, gamma function, beta function, etc. Then applying all this on the differential system, fractional derivatives. So the definition of the Laplace transform is given by this expression. Integral 0 to infinity of this. It is a familiar thing which we denote by f of s. The Laplace transform of the function f of t is f of s. And the standard Laplace transforms are given here. For the function 1 is given, and for the function t power n, etc. These are all given in the. Now, once we have the Laplace transform, we can get the inverse Laplace transform. In Laplace inverse of this capital F is the small f of t, defined by this expression. Laplace inverse of Fs, capital Fs is small ft. And for the same functions, we write Laplace inverse of the 1 by s is 1, etc. These are also known to as this familiar this thing. And the important property of the Laplace transform is Laplace transform of a derivative function f dashed of t. It is given by this right hand side function s into the Laplace transform minus f0, the value at the point 0. And Laplace transform of the convolution function. If there are two functions f and g, then the convolution of f and g, it is called f star g. That is given by this expression 0 to t f of S G of t minus S ds is the convolution of f and g. And Laplace transform of f star g is given by the product of the Laplace transforms. Okay. So this implies that the Laplace inverse of the two Laplace transforms f of s into g of s. If you have f of t has Laplace transform, f of s, small g of t has Laplace transform, this capital G of s, then the Laplace inverse of this product, that is same as the convolution f of t star g of t. From the expression we get. So this will be very useful in finding various inverse of functions, Laplace inverse. Now the gamma function, if you recall, it is given by this expression 0 to infinity integral e to the power minus t and t to the power alpha minus 1. Gamma of alpha is given by this expression. And we note that the gamma function is same as the Laplace transform only for this particular function. It is equal to integral 0 to infinity e power minus st t power alpha minus 1 dt. If you put s equal to 1, we get the gamma function of alpha. Okay, that is given by the Laplace transform only. So from the previous slides, we can easily calculate the gamma of the function gamma n is nothing but n minus 1 factorial for any integer n. And gamma of half is the root of pi. These are standard results of this thing. We note that the gamma function, if you plot the graph of this from 0 onwards, 0, 1, 2, 3, etc., it will be a curve like this. That is, at 0, it will be infinity. Gamma of 1 is 1, and gamma of 2 is 1 factorial. Again, its value is 1. And gamma of 3 is 2 factorial, etc. It will be increasing. So if we get a curve like this for the gamma function. And this is the property gamma of z plus 1 is z times gamma of z. These expressions are known to us. And the beta function, also if you recall, the definition is like this: 0 to 1, t to the power, there's two variable, t power x minus 1, 1 minus t power y minus 1, for x and y both to be positive values. And y can be complex numbers also, but we don't require for this lecture. It is, if x and y are two positive numbers, we can always define the beta function like this. And the value of the beta function for these two numbers, x and y, is in terms of the gamma function, gamma x, gamma y, gamma of x plus y. So this is a standard property of the beta function. Now, using this, whatever is discussed here, the gamma functions mainly, we can write the expression which is called the Mittag-Leffler function, a new function which is very much useful in the fractional calculus. Okay, so the Mittag-Leffler function is e suffix alpha. For a given alpha, the function is defined as summation k equal to 0 to infinity of z power k, gamma function here, of alpha k plus 1. So it is an infinite series in the right hand side given here. And this is the Mittag-Leffler function of one parameter. And the Mittag-Leffler function of two parameter is given by, for two parameter alpha and beta, here instead of alpha k plus 1, we put alpha k plus beta. For various values of beta, we can calculate this function. These are the two functions here. So now we note that if you substitute alpha equal to 1, E1 of z, that is nothing but e to the power z. Because you can see that it is summation z power k by k factorial, because gamma of k plus 1 is nothing but k factorial, and that is given by the total summation will be the e to the power z. So the Mittag-Leffler function at alpha equal to 1 is nothing but exponential function. We get this. And if you put beta equal to 1 here, we will get e alpha 1 of z is e suffix alpha of z. And from here also we can get several other functions. If you put z equal to x square and alpha equal to 2k, alpha equal to 2, if you put, we will get cos hyperbolic functions. And when you put z equal to minus x square and z equal to 2, we will get several functions, whichever can be written in terms of infinite series. We can obtain various functions by putting z differently, like x square, alpha as 1, 2, etc. We will get various infinite series functions. Okay. But mainly we require this Mittag-Leffler function in this particular form to get solutions of the differential equations, fractional differential equations. Now, we have already seen the solution of the first order differential equation in terms of e to the power at. The same solution can be obtained now using the Laplace transform in this following way. So this it is familiar that we take Laplace transform both sides for the function. Whoever is in the engineering, we use extensively the Laplace transform and get the transfer functions, etc. So the same procedure here. We take Laplace transform both sides, Laplace x dashed, and the right hand side is Laplace transform of a into x, that one. Now Laplace of x dashed is using the formula, it is s into Laplace transform of x minus x at 0. Okay, that is the property of the Laplace transform, equal to a times Laplace transform of x, the right hand side. Now bringing Laplace common in the left hand side, we will get this expression. And so Laplace transform of x function is 1 by s minus a into the initial condition x naught. And if you take the inverse Laplace transform here, we will get the inverse of 1 by s minus a is nothing but e to the power minus at, e to the power at. So the solution is obtained in this particular manner. So through the Laplace transform, we can solve the differential equation in this particular way. And if the initial condition is not 0, if t naught instead of 0, if the initial condition is t naught, t suffix 0, as given here, we can reduce this problem to initial condition 0 problem and then solve by substituting, let us say t minus t naught, if you put as another variable r, then dt will become dr here, and the function x of, so t will become r plus t0. So wherever t is there, we will put r plus t naught. So x of r plus t naught here, that we call it as y of r, a new function. Okay, so the differential equation in terms of r will be written like this. Y dashed of R equal to A into Y of R. And the initial condition will become 0 here. When T is T0, R is 0. So we get this 0 initial condition. And the solution is written like this. Y of T is e to the power A into T x naught. So Y of R here. And when we replace R with T again for the original equation, we get the expression e to the power A into T minus T naught. This is for the one variable case. Now, if it is not one variable, simply not like this. If you have a matrix, instead of A, if you have a matrix expression, like let us say the matrix is a diagonal matrix. D is lambda 1, lambda 2 type of thing. And X is the vector in R2 here because the size is 2 cross 2. So X is X1, X2, yeah, R2 vector. So there are two ordinary differential equations, system of equation. And if we take Laplace transform again both sides for the vector, so we have to take the Laplace transform for each entry of the vector. That is the meaning of Laplace transform of a vector. So similarly, Laplace transform of the matrix, we should take the each entry, the Laplace transform, like this right hand side. So here it is very simple. The equation has reduced to two equations in this particular form because we have x1 derivative, x2 derivative, that is equal to lambda 1, 0, 0, lambda 2, x1, x2. So it is very simple here. X1 derivative is separate lambda 1, x1. X2 derivative is lambda 2, x2 by the right hand side. So it is like the previous problem only separately, and we solve them each separately. We get finally the expression to be like this. Okay. We take Laplace transform both sides and inverse Laplace transform. So the solution is e to the power dt into the initial condition x of 0. Okay. Because when we take Laplace transform separately for all this, 1 by lambda s minus lambda 1, it is e to the power lambda 1t. In the second one, when we take, it is e to the power lambda 2t. So we get finally the same type of solution, e to the power d t into this thing. And if the initial time is non-zero, then we get t minus t naught, that as we discussed earlier. Okay. Now, if it is not a diagonal matrix, if it is a general matrix, instead of x dashed equal to dx, if you have x dashed equal to ax, this is for the diagonal. This is for the diagonal entry. Okay, now if the equation is x dashed equal to a into x, here where a is a n cross n matrix, then we apply the diagonalization process. A can be written as P, B, P inverse, and then proceed with the D matrix, because we have studied how to do it for D, the diagonal matrix. The same thing can be done. And only thing is, after doing with the diagonal matrix, you have to multiply P the left side and P inverse in the right side. We get the solution in this particular form by using the same procedure of the Laplace transform. And if A is not a diagonalizable matrix, then we will get a Jordan canonical form for the matrix. So for example, if A is a 3 by 3 matrix and it is not diagonalizable, but it will have a Jordan canonical form, something like this. Where lambda is the eigenvalue of the matrix and it is repeated 3 times, we get a Jordan canonical form in this particular way. And the power of the Jordan canonical form is given by this one. J square will be lambda square 2 lambda, etc. Just multiply this, and the nth power or the kth power of j is given by this expression. It is j power k is lambda power n, k c1 lambda power, sorry, here lambda power n. J power n is nc1, nc2 will come in the coefficients like this. And using that, we can calculate the exponential function. E to the power j is this formula, I plus jt, etc. And substituting the j power n formula in each term, and then adding this matrix, we will get the exponential jt is given by this one. E power jt is the first element, t e power jt, t square by 2 factorial e power jt. So this expression will be obtained for the exponential of jt. Now, if A is not diagonalizable, A will get a Jordan form in this way. So there will be a matrix P and P inverse such that P inverse AP is the Jordan canonical form. Okay, where this is only for the 3 by 3 matrix. I am saying J is a 3 by 3 matrix. So if A is a 3 by 3 matrix, it will have a Jordan canonical form, something like this. So we can write P inverse AP is Jordan J, or A is P J P inverse, and e to the power AT is nothing but P e to the power JT P inverse. So e to the power JT is given by this thing. So we can calculate e power AT using this particular formula. Okay. So if you have a differential equation like this, x dashed equal to a Jordan form into x of t, then the solution is given by x of t is e to the power jt into the initial vector x naught, which is given by this particular formula as discussed in the previous slides. Whatever we discussed for the diagonal form, we can do it for the Jordan form. And here we take the Laplace inverse for these functions, because in the Jordan canonical form, extra terms will come in the matrix. So we should take the inverse Laplace transform for all the terms one by one, and we will finally arrive at a solution of this type of t equal to e power jt type, like this. Now, if A is a general matrix, x dashed equal to AX, then we make use of its Jordan canonical form and finally get the solution of this thing. Okay. Once we get for the Jordan canonical form, for this solution, x dashed equal to AX, what we will get is P e power jt P inverse into x naught will be the solution of the problem for this one, for a general matrix. Okay. So now we will go to the fractional derivative, fractional calculus, and the fractional derivative, how to solve a fractional differential equation. That will be done by this. So for that, we need the concept of the fractional integration first. So first thing is the Cauchy formula for n integrals. Successive integral. Here we see a function f is integrated n times like this. F of the variable sigma n and d sigma n minus 1. So these are n integrals for the function. And it was proved that the Cauchy integral, the formula is that this integral is same as this one. But the n integral is reduced to a single integral like this. Integral the initial condition to t, a to t, x minus t whole power n minus 1. If it is a n integral, then we will get 1 by n minus 1 factorial, x minus t to the power n minus 1, and the given function f of t dt. So if you do this integral, it will be the same as this thing. It is a formula, and we can easily prove this. It will be a derivation, which we are not doing because these are all some basic things. So we don't give the proof of all this, but it is a very important formula. The Cauchy integral formula. See, there are Cauchy integral formula in complex variables also. That is different. Here, the successive integration, n integration is reduced to one integral using this formula. Now, again, the same question has come. If the integer is replaced by fraction, then what will be the meaning of this integral? We are integrating n times here. So is it possible to integrate half times or 1.5 times, etc.? So if from this formula, the idea came that just replace the integer with a fraction in this. So we know that n minus 1 factorial is nothing but gamma of n. So in the place of fraction, then we get this thing 1 by gamma of n. This n minus 1 factorial can be written as gamma of n, and the other things are same. Variable power n minus 1 into this thing. So wherever the n is there, put the variable alpha here. The fractional value is. Hello? Is it audible? Hello? Is it audible?
Yes, sir. Audible, sir. Audible.
Okay. Is there any question in between?
Chat box. Dear participant, if you have any questions, please raise your hand or directly unmute yourself and speak.
No, I thought somebody has asked some question.
If any questions, please ask.
Let me continue in that case.
Yes, sir, please.
So the Riemann, the Cauchy integral formula, this is for integers. And if the integer is replaced by the fraction alpha, then it is called the fractional integral. It is named by Riemann-Leibniz fractional integral, which is defined by this expression 1 by gamma of alpha integral a to t minus s whole power alpha minus 1 f of s ds. So that is the form for the Riemann-Leibniz integral formula. So this integration, it will satisfy the following property. The zeroth order integral is identity, that is known. If you don't do any integration, that is the same function. That is I0 is identity. And if you integrate I alpha multiplied by I beta, operating on I beta, that is I of alpha minus. So this matches with the usual integration. If you take integration of n times integral operating on that, if you further integrate m times, then it is same as integrating m plus n times. Okay. Here it is appearing, n integral is appearing. So if you are integrating further one more time, it will be called n plus 1 integral. So like that, we can keep on adding. So same way here, alpha times integral and operating on beta time integral is it is same as alpha plus beta times integral, and it is commutative as given here in this case. So it is matching with the usual integration. Now the derivative, Riemann-Liouville fractional derivative, it is defined by this formula. It is the left hand side is something similar to the usual this thing. The alpha times derivative, if you want, what we can do is differentiate n times integer time and integrate it I n minus alpha times, so that ultimately we have the integral minus alpha times, that is called the derivative alpha times, isn't it? The inverse of integral is derivative. So same concept is used here. It is something like d alpha. It is assumed that minus alpha times integral is same as alpha times differential. So, sorry, alpha times integral is the same as the derivative here, isn't it? Okay, so the derivative of alpha times is the reverse of the integration. So here d alpha is I derivative n times operating on integral n minus alpha times. So that is the property given here. Using this assumption, the definition is given like this. The alpha times derivative is given by nth time derivative, that is dn by dtn, and the integral definition is taken from this page, that is alpha times integral is, so instead of alpha you have to put n minus alpha. So we will get this particular formula for the alpha derivative of the Riemann-Liouville integral. So this is our main derivative formula, provided the right hand side exists. So it should not become infinity. That is the only condition. We can differentiate any function for which we can do the right hand side without any difficulty. That is the condition for applying the usual derivative. Also, we cannot differentiate any function, right? Like mod x cannot be differentiated at x equal to 0. Similarly, whichever function can be performed, the right hand side, that for that we can define the Riemann-Liouville derivative. Similarly, another derivative is the Capito fractional derivative. So it is slightly reverse of this. Riemann-Liouville is nth time derivative of I n minus alpha, the integral n minus alpha. And the Capito derivative is the reverse, I n minus alpha, integral of the derivative. So these two are not the same. Even in the ordinary derivative, we can see that the integral of the derivative is not same as the derivative of the integral, isn't it, of a function. To first differentiate and then integrate from a limit a to b, let us say, then its value will be different from first integrate and then differentiate the function, that slightly the value will be different, isn't it? Integral of df by dt into dt. Let's say a to some s. So its value is nothing but f of s minus f of a. The upper limit is s, lower limit is a. So this value. But if you take d by ds of integral a to s f of t dt. So its value is nothing but f of s1, isn't it? Derivative is f of s1. So there is a slight difference. If the initial value is 0, f of a is 0, then both are same. Otherwise, it is different. So same way, the Riemann-Liouville is derivative then integration of the fractional orders. Here it is first integration and the derivative in this way. That is called the Capito fractional derivative, defined by this expression. So here we observe that the function f, it is already a condition is imposed on the function. F should be differentiable n times. We want the fractional derivative of alpha if alpha is between these two numbers, n minus 1 less than alpha less than n. So if I want the half derivative, so it is between 0 and 1. So if I want a half derivative here, the function should be differentiable one time. That is, f dash should come inside the integration. Then only for such function we can find the half derivative, isn't it, in this way. But Riemann-Liouville derivative is different. Even if the function is not differentiable, we can perform this integration, then make the derivative outside. That is the meaning. So Riemann-Liouville has more function. We can make half derivative for more function in Riemann-Liouville derivative than the capital. But sometimes it may be comfortable. The Riemann capital derivative has various some properties. Here we see the following: the relation between Capito and the Riemann derivative. If you differentiate a function using this definition, Capito definition, that will be equal to the Riemann derivative and the extra terms. All this in terms of the initial condition. Initial initial value is a. So the value of the function at a and its derivative at a, etc., will be involved in this expression. So they are not the same. The Riemann derivative and Capito derivative both are different. They are related by this particular formula. Okay. Now, if you differentiate a constant, usually when we differentiate a constant, it will be 0, the usual derivative. And here Capito derivative also becomes 0 because if you differentiate using Capito, a constant, if f is equal to a constant, then f dash will be 0. So the inside the integral you will get 0. Therefore, the Capito derivative of a constant will be 0. But the Riemann-Liouville derivative of a constant may not be, is not 0 because the constant will come inside the integral. First, you should do the integral. You will get some function. Then you differentiate this outside. So you will not get a 0 value for the Riemann-Liouville integral for a constant. You will get some function like this. So it is not somewhat similar to the usual derivative. Some extra thing is there. And then another important property here is for Riemann-Liouville derivative. One advantage here is if you have the number alpha, alpha is between two values, n and n minus 1. Okay. So if you take a alpha derivative and alpha tends to n, if you take alpha equal to n, in the definition, it will be equal to the nth derivative. If you take alpha equal to n minus 1, then it will be equal to the n minus 1th derivative. That is a very nice property of the Riemann-Liouville derivative. But in the Capito derivative, it is, if you take alpha equal to n, that is equal to the nth derivative, it is matching with the usual derivative. But if alpha is n minus 1, if you put alpha n minus 1, then it is n minus 1th derivative, integer derivative, minus some value at the initial point. Okay, so it is not the same as the n minus 1th derivative. And so that is a little bit different from the Riemann integral. So this property is also very useful. Actually, this property is useful in both the cases. Because when we have a differential equation, for example, we have a second order differential equation, y double dashed plus y dashed equal to 1. It's a usual second order differential equation. We can solve it. But this can be approximated by some other number. Y, I can say 1.9 the derivative plus I can say y dashed equal to 1. So this is a fractional differential equation. 2 is replaced by 1.9. Then I can do the solution of this problem. So according to this theorem, when alpha is tending to the upper integer, the value, it is matching with the derivative. So I can say that the derivative 1.9 will be close to the second derivative. Okay. So the solution of this equation is approximated to the given differential equation. So in many practical problems, the ODE problems, because we know that many physical problems or electrical, electronics, we come across many differential equations. And those equations can be approximated with the close number. If it is a second order differential equation, we can put some close number less than 2 and approximate that equation with this. And the solution of the fractional differential equation will be close to the solution of this thing. So many numerical studies are being performed in the application side using this particular procedure. So now we can see that the integral of the standard function, for example, the integral of t power n, we know that it is t power n plus 1 by n plus 1, isn't it? This is the standard integral. Same way, the alpha times integral of this function, some t power something is given. Here, if you put t minus a power n, also the same type of formula. So here t minus a to the power, some value is given. This is same as we will get, if you put integer, almost we will get the same value. That is gamma of, if you put an integer, you can write it in terms of factorial. Gamma of n is n minus 1 factorial. So this is matching with the usual integration. If you take a function and integrate. Similarly, the derivative of this function, t minus a to the power n minus 1, is given by this expression. etc. So if you substitute this function inside these formulas, this derivative formula here, and perform this integration, we will get these values. Now we come to a very important thing, that is, see, usually when we differentiate, if you differentiate b square and then differentiate t 3 times of a function f, then it is automatically d power 5. Okay. This can be reversed also. We can first differentiate 3 times and then 2 times, then of the function f. Both are same. But here in the fractional, it is not the same. If you differentiate first beta times, then alpha times, that can be written as d alpha plus beta. That expression is this thing. You can see that it involves beta. Here it involves the value of the expression. And it will not be the same as d beta plus alpha. Okay. Because of this expression which is appearing here. Okay, here alpha is appearing. Okay, first if it is alpha, then here alpha is appearing. But first if you put beta, then beta will appear here. It will be a different value. So you cannot write d alpha, d beta is same as d beta, d alpha because of this expression. And here integration of the derivative, the Riemann derivative, is given by this expression. Okay, so this is for the Riemann derivative. This is same thing for the Capito derivative. The integration of the Capito derivative is given by this particular expression. Here f at the initial point, it is written as fj of the initial point A. That formula is given by this. So all this can be derived just by substituting the function in the integral formulas. Now the important thing is the Laplace transform of the fractional derivative. If we have, it is given by this following expression. It is somewhat looking similar to the usual thing. The Laplace transform of a differential function f of f dash of t. We see that it is s times Laplace transform of f minus f of 0. For first derivative, for second derivative, we will get s square, etc. That is there. Here also somewhat looking similar. Laplace transform of the alpha derivative of a function. So we will get s to the power alpha, and similar to this, minus in terms of the initial conditions, various derivatives up to n minus 1th derivative, we will get this thing, provided alpha is in between n and n minus 1. This number, so n will be, for example, if alpha is 1.5, then n will be 2, and the summation will come from 0 to 1. Here 2 minus 1, we have to write 2 terms. So depending on the value of alpha, we will write the Laplace transform of the alpha derivative of the function. Alpha. Now the Laplace transform for the Riemann integral of a function and Laplace transform of the Capito derivative of the function. These are all given by this particular expression. The first one is the usual derivative. This is for Riemann integral. This is for Capito integral. capital derivative, and these expressions somewhat similar to the usual derivative with slight difference. Because there is a difference in Capito and Riemann, there will be naturally slight difference. But these formulas are important for solving fractional differential equations. Okay, now we take the fractional differential equation, Capito derivative of alpha times Capito derivative, d alpha c of a function x equal to a into x. If it is your differential equation, we have seen x dash equal to ax. For this, the solution is e to the power at into the initial condition x naught. But instead, if you have alpha time derivative of a function x equal to a into x, and the initial condition is x0 equal to x naught, then what is the solution of this problem? For that, we take Laplace transform both sides. The Laplace transform of this Capito derivative, and we have seen here the Laplace transform of Capito derivative. So that is nothing but s to the power alpha minus a as given here. Now if you take Laplace transform common, we will get s power alpha minus a of into the Laplace transform of the function is given by the right hand side as given here. Now keeping Laplace transform in one side, we will get s power alpha minus 1 multiplied by the inverse of this in the right hand side. S power alpha minus a whole power minus 1. It will come in the right hand side. So x of t is the Laplace inverse of this function, this particular function. And the Laplace inverse of this function is proved to be the Mittag-Leffler function, which was introduced earlier, E alpha of this function, where E alpha is given by the previous slide. We have seen the Mittag-Leffler function. Here, this is the function. So E alpha of at, if you substitute, you will get this in the place of z, you have to substitute that one. You get the solution in the terms of the Mittag-Leffler function. Okay. So by taking the inverse Laplace transform, we get this thing as the solution. Now, in the place of a constant, if we have a matrix, then also we can do the same thing. For example, if we have the Jordan canonical form, or in the place of constant, you have a matrix in the Jordan form, then also it is the same formula. It is exactly same thing we have to perform. And it is the Mittag-Leffler function, j t to the power alpha will come in the place of z. Okay. So this is the very important this thing. And if we have a matrix A in the place of J, if you have a matrix, then we have to use P, J, P inverse. Again, we solve it for J only and multiply the solution with P and P inverse. The solution will be P, the Mittag-Leffler function, Jt alpha, P inverse into x naught. That will be the x of t. In case J is replaced by the matrix A. So for all the cases, we can easily solve using the Mittag-Leffler function. If you have a system of fractional order derivatives like differential equations in this particular form. Okay. So now this is about the solution of a system of equation, the fractional is kx. What we have seen is, so far, if you have the fractional derivative of a function x equal to ax, this type of equation, if you have, we can solve it using this Mittag-Leffler function and writing the solution in this form. Okay, so this is the conclusion so far. Now, we can use this procedure for studying the stability of a system, fractional derivatives, as well as we can apply it in various control concepts. So if you recall the stability of a system, if you have a system of differential equation, x dot equal to, the right hand side is the function of x and t, the nonlinear function. If you have, then you have equilibrium points. That is, if you equate the right hand side to 0. See, x dot equal to 0 means x will be a fixed value, constant. So that constant position is called the equilibrium point. So that will be obtained by equating the right hand side to 0. So we will get all the equilibrium points of a system by equating the right hand side to 0. For example, if you have a system like this, equate the right hand side to 0, and then solve for x1, x2, you will get two equilibrium points, 0, 0, and 2.5. These 2 points are the equilibrium points for this system. Okay. So the solution of this system is called the, either it is stable or unstable, etc. It depends on how the solution behaves near the equilibrium points. See, for example, for this system, it is a 2-dimensional problem. There are 2 variables, x1 and x2. It can be plotted here. And x1, x2 are function of time. Here, time derivative is there. So, one equilibrium point is 0, 0. Another equilibrium point is 2.5, somewhere here. Now, if you solve this equation, the neighborhood of this equilibrium point, where if the solution, we can plot the solution x, see x1 of t, x2 of t. For various value of t, it will give points, and then we can plot the points and get the solution, get the curve. Okay, that is called the phase space diagram of the system. So if the solution of this is always around this equilibrium point only, to start somewhere near the equilibrium point, if it is always near the equilibrium point, then it is called stable. And if the solution arrive at the equilibrium point as t tends to infinity, then it is called asymptotically stable. And if you start in the neighborhood of the equilibrium point, but the solution will move away from the equilibrium point, then it is called unstable. So that is the concept of stability for a dynamical system. This is also familiar to most of us, and it is mathematically written. That is, if you take the initial condition very close to the origin, if 0, 0 is the equilibrium point, if the initial condition is close to 0, that is, the modulus is less than delta, some small value, then for all time t also it will be very close to 0. Then it is called the stable position. That is what I said. If initially it is close to origin, and for all the time it is always close to the origin, the solution, then it is called stable. And asymptotically stable means as t tends to infinity, it should reach 0, 0. And unstable means it will go to infinity. So now, for example, if you take the simplest case, dx by dt equal to a into x, constant a, then the solution, as we know, it is e to the power a into t multiplied by the initial condition x naught. Okay. This condition. Then we can see that if a is a complex number, alpha plus I beta, it can be written as e to the power alpha t into e to the power I beta t x naught. Okay. So alpha plus I beta. Now, if the modulus of e to the power I beta is always equal to 1, which is sine b plus I times cos beta, modulus is 1 only. But if alpha is negative, then e to the power minus e to the power alpha t will tend to 0 as t tends to infinity. So we can say that the system is asymptotically stable if a is a because the solution tends to 0 as t tends to infinity. So it is asymptotically stable provided the real part of the a value is less than 0. So the same concept is true when it is a matrix. If it is a diagonal matrix, let us say x dashed equal to d times x, then we get the system of equation like this. If all the constant of all the diagonal elements have negative real part, as we have already seen, the solution can be written like this: x of t equal to e to the power at into x naught. And if all the eigenvalues have negative real part, then we get the system to be asymptotically stable. Because we see here x of x dot of t, the derivative equal to a into x, initial condition is this. The solution can be written like this: p e to the power dt p inverse. And if the real part of all the eigenvalues are negative, then we can easily show that the solution tends to 0 as t tends to infinity. Okay, this one. Or in other words, what we have here is, if the real part is negative, means in the complex plane, it's a complex plane, the argument is from pi by 2 to minus pi by 2, 3 pi by 2 here. If you take a complex number, then if it is in this side, then its argument, the angle is from pi by 2 to 3 pi by 2. Or we can say that the argument of a complex number lambda, it is greater than, modulus is greater than pi by 2. This is minus pi by 2. So we can say that this means the real part of lambda is negative. This is written in this form: argument of lambda is greater than pi by 2. Okay, both are same. So when we take a system x dot equal to ax, if all the eigenvalues have this condition, modulus of argument of lambda is greater than pi by 2, or we can say that it is in the left side of the complex plane, then the system is asymptotically stable. In other words, the solution will tend to the origin as t tends to infinity. Okay, so that is this stability property. It is an important property of the study of stability in the case of system of equations. Okay. So this is the theorem. If you have x dot equal to ax, and if the real part of this thing, real part of the eigenvalues are less than 0, then it is asymptotically stable. And even if one of the eigenvalue has real part greater than 0, then it is unstable. Okay. That from this itself, e to the power lambda it If lambda I has positive real part, then it will tend to infinity. That is also clear from this place. Here we have written e to the power alpha t. If alpha, the real part is positive, it will tend to infinity, isn't it? So even if one of the eigenvalue has positive real part, it will be unstable, the equation. So here it shows the phase space diagram of various problems. If A is a 2 by 2 matrix, if derivative is A into X, A is a 2 by 2 matrix like this. If both of them are positive, then it is unstable because eigenvalues are positive. And for negative eigenvalues, if both the eigenvalues are negative, then it is asymptotically stable. The solution comes towards the origin here, is going away from the origin because eigenvalues are positive. And if one eigenvalue is positive, one is negative, then also it is unstable. It is going away from the origin. The solution is going towards infinity. And if both the eigenvalues are complex numbers, okay, that is zero real part, then it is stable. It will not reach the origin. It will not also go to infinity, but it will be always near the origin. So it is stable here. And if it is complex number, the eigenvalues are complex and it has negative real part, then also it is coming towards the origin. It is asymptotically stable. So the graph of the solutions are drawn here for such equations. That is showing the stability. Now we can extend the concept of stability to the fractional order systems. The fractional order system d alpha equal to a constant a into x. Let us take the simplest equation. If alpha is the fraction integer first derivative, then we saw that if the real part of a is negative, it is asymptotically stable. But here let us see what is the meaning. The solution of this, it is given by the Mittag-Leffler function E alpha into E alpha of A t power alpha. As we have seen, the solution of this differential equation is given by this expression. Now, there is an important result that in this paper is shown that the Mittag-Leffler function can be approximated by this particular formula. E alpha A t to the power alpha, this function, it is approximately equal to this side, whatever is given here, as shown in the expression. If argument of this number A is less than alpha pi by 2, and if argument is greater than alpha pi by 2, the value is this thing, okay, as given here. So now we can see from this expression, from this expression, we can see that here you have the power. Okay. So if argument of A is greater than alpha pi by 2, then as t tends to infinity, this will tend to 0, this particular this thing. Okay, if it is given here, this tends to 0 as t tends to infinity, provided argument of this number is greater than alpha pi by 2. Because for greater than alpha pi by 2, this is the expression. And as t tends to infinity, this will be 0. Okay, this side is 0. So what it says is, in case you take the complex plane, for example, let's say alpha equal to 1 by 2, half, because fractional derivative. So let us say alpha is half, And the problem is the half derivative of a function equal to a times x of t. So when this equation will be stable, that means when x of t will tend to 0 as t tends to infinity. Under what condition? We can show that if the constant a has the property, if it is a complex number, then its value should be the argument of a, the number should be argument of a modulus should be greater than alpha pi by 2. Alpha is half here, therefore it should be greater than pi by 4. So it means modulus is greater than pi by 4. So it is pi by 4 is 45 degrees and this side also. So the modulus means because plus or minus sign, it should be greater than this number. So in this region, if you have a complex number, whether it is here or here, etc., if this number a is lying in this particular region of the complex plane, then we can say that the system, the solution of this system will tend to 0 as t tends to infinity. It will be asymptotically stable. So it is improving the integer order solution. Whatever we have studied for integer order system, the real part of lambda is negative. That is the main theorem for asymptotically stable. Here we say, we cannot say in terms of real part, but we can say in terms of the argument of the complex number. So the same result hold good for a matrix. If you have the capital derivative equal to a into x, as given here, 0 less than alpha 1, and initial condition is given like this, then the solution is written in terms of the Mittag-Laffer function, as we have already shown. So here it can be shown, it is a long derivation, etc. Here we have written it for one function, but because of the matrix, it will be a big expression. So what we can show here is in the similar manner, the argument of all the eigenvalues is greater than alpha pi by 2. So the same reason, if alpha is half, for example, the region is pi by 4 to minus pi by 4 here. And we have to take this region. So if all the eigenvalues lie in this region, if it is a n cross n matrix, so there will be n eigenvalues. If all the eigenvalues lie in this region, then we can say that the system is asymptotically stable because of the because of this approximation, okay, as given here. And you can consult this particular paper for the stability of the system. So this is the one. Similar to this thing, we can also study the controllability of the system. So let us see what is the meaning of the controllability of the system for a given system. So we are familiar with this type of thing, x dot equal to ax plus bu, where x is a vector in Rn, x of t and is in Rn. It has x1, x2, xn, n state variables, and u is the control variable is in Rm. There are u1, u2, um. M functions can be the control. A is a n cross n matrix. B is n cross m matrix. So if you have a control system like this, then there will be some initial point. With the initial condition, it is a system of differential equation. If you know the function u of t, then it is a system of differential equation. But If you want to find the control, then it is called a control system. If you do not know u of t and you want to find u of t for a particular purpose, controlling the system, then it is called a control system. So for example, in this case, x j times x dash equal to u. It is a differential equation, something like this. Here it is a wheel is rotating, and j is the inertia and u is the force, angular acceleration of the wheel. Okay. It is like the Newton's formula, mass into acceleration equal to force. So here, in the place of mass, we have the inertia because it is a rotating. See, Newton's formula is mass into acceleration equal to force. It is for a particle moving in a straight line. And inertia into the angular acceleration. Inertia into the angular acceleration, we can say A equal to the torque, that is for particles moving in a rotational motion. Both are the Newton's law only. One is with mass and another is with inertia. So here it is the second thing. A wheel is rotating. So inertia into the velocity of the angular velocity, derivative of angular velocity is angular acceleration. So it is this formula. Inertia into angular acceleration equal to the torque. Torque applied at the point for rotating the wheel. So this is a control system because we are controlling the wheel using the right hand side force, okay, torque. So if you take the integration both sides, the simplest integral, you will get x of t minus the initial condition x of t naught will be equal to 1 by j of the integral u of t dt, isn't it? So just integrate both sides, you will get this expression. So it is the initial velocity of the wheel, and this is the velocity at a particular time. So let us assume that the initial velocity at a time is there, and we want to stop this wheel. It's a rotating wheel. Initial velocity is this, and we want to stop the wheel at a particular time t1. Then how much of the force we have to apply here? The torque we have to apply on this wheel. That is the question here. So it is the simplest one. We want that x of t1 should be equal to 0. The final velocity should be 0. So, and we know the initial velocity at time t0. This is known, and we do not know what is u of t. The inertia value is known for the wheel. J is known. So the question is, what will be the value of u of t if you want this particular value, j into x of t naught? One such solution is, obviously you can trial and error will give u of t is this value, j x naught divided by t minus t naught. If you put it here, you will get this right hand side. Therefore, one possibility is if you apply this much of torque to that wheel, it will stop at the time t equal to t1. That is the solution, isn't it? So this system, whatever value you give for this x of t1, you can find a u of t. That is the control. So the question of controllability is in this space. If it is a one-dimensional problem, but if it is a more dimensional, if the initial condition is given, final condition is given, if you are able to get the solution starting with the initial and final time, if you are able to find a control u such that the solution starts from the given initial condition and reaching to the final condition, then we say that the system is controllable. for any arbitrary initial condition and for any arbitrary final condition, if you are able to find control, then we say that the system is controllable. Okay. So, but in that case, this system is controllable. J x dashed equal to u is a system and it is controllable because we are able to find a control for the given initial and the final condition. So for a general system, x dot equal to ax plus bu, the theorem by Kalman controllability, it has started in the year 1963. The controllability was given by Kalman, and the condition is a very useful condition. If you write the matrix B, A, B, A square, B, etc., as we have already seen, B is a n cross m matrix. A is n cross n matrix. So if I write the B matrix here and A into B matrix here, etc., I will get n cross mn. Because here B has m columns, A into B has m column, etc. So totally there will be n into m columns and there will be n rows. So n cross mn matrix we will get. This is called the Kalman matrix. And if the rank of the matrix K is equal to the order of the matrix A, that is n, then we say that the system is controllable. If the matrix has rank n, the system is controllable, means we can always find a control U so that it starts with a given initial condition and end with a given final condition. So the system is always controllable, and it is a very important area of research. Controllability is an important area of research in various things. So for example, if you take this particular system, x1 dot equal to this and x2 dot equal to this, the matrix here is, you can say 1, 1 and 0, 1. A is the matrix like this and B is 1 and 0. Okay. Then we can write x dot equal to ax plus b into u. So here we can say that the rank, if you first write b, then a into b, if you multiply also, will get 1, 0 only. The rank of this matrix is equal to 1. So we can say that the system is not controllable because of the rank condition is not satisfied. So according to this particular thing. Here you can see that the rank condition is satisfied. This implies system is controllable. We can easily see that B is 1, 0 and A matrix is minus 1, 1 and 1, minus 1. If you write, you multiply this, you will get the rank of the matrix is 2. So it is controllable. So see, once a matrix is controllable, then we can start finding the control with a confidence. If the system is not controllable, it's a waste of time to find a control for a given initial and final condition, isn't it? So controllability and concept is very important here. So the same condition, if it is a fractional order system, then also the same condition holds good. The initially Kalman started this condition only for integer order system, but later it was developed that for fractional order system also the same condition is true. And currently the research is about the fractional order system for partial differential equations also, that is infinite dimensional systems, and we can extend various results available in the integer order system case to fractional order differential systems. Okay. So these are various types of applications one can see in picture. As I already said, application is in the sense that if you have a differential system, then you can take the approximate nearby value for example, you have studied the heat equation, del U by del T, where U represent the heat distribution at a point X at a time T. This is the heat conduction, del square U by del X. Let us say the simplest, the heat equation, which all of us have studied. It is regarding a rod of length 0 to L. So initially some temperature and at the two ends, and there will be a temperature distribution initial time. That is U at 0th time X. It is a given function. Let us say at every point X of the rod, what is the temperature at time T equal to 0 is given by this function. And if you want that at a particular time T, some different time T at the rod, if you want that it should be another distribution G of X, then how to make it? So you have to apply a control function here, dTx. You have to heat this rod suitably so that at a final time T, you will arrive at this much of heat to the problem. So there should be a control for controlling the heat distribution. Don't have the control, then there is no, for a given initial distribution, you will get some value, but we cannot control that final value. Okay. So if you have a control forcing function, it is called external force or external heat distribution, which we give for the rod, then we can control it like this. So this type of system can be studied. It is a partial differential equation, but these are all studied extensively. It's an integer order partial differential. But if you write here some alpha the derivative, fractional derivative heat equation, where alpha is between 0 to 1. So if alpha is very close to 1, you can put any number, 1.99 or something, and then study this equation. Then the solution heat distribution may be close to the original problem, this thing. So sometimes it may be helpful by studying using fractional derivative. Some studies are going on, and various things are represented here. And these are some references given in this. So that is, maybe I can stop here up to this.
Sure, sir.
Yeah, because I have stopped a little bit earlier, but
No problem.
yeah. If there is any question, I can answer for this.
So, participant, if you have any questions regarding fractional calculus, control, and etc., you can ask.
Participants have might have studied, this control theory, and
Yes, sir. Most of them from the research scholar are PhD are faculty members.
Faculty members. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So fractional derivatives and fractional differential equation are also recent topics. So they are developed here. And currently you can see apart from these two derivatives, Riemann and Capito derivative, there are so many derivatives, new derivatives are introduced currently. That is Hilfer derivative or Tangana derivatives, and there are so many. So
Yes, sir.
and
One question from in the chat box. Can you please repeat stability diagram?
Acha.
Yeah, this question at in chat box.
Here, yeah.
Yes.
These are stability of a system x dot equal to ax. So it's a two variable problem, this thing. Okay. So if you have, for example, this problem, if I have x1 dot, this is equal to some matrix A, B, C, D multiplied by x1, x2 equation. Then to solve this equation, you will get x1 of t, x2 of t as the solution. Okay. X1 and x2 are the variables. So this can be plotted here, x1 axis and x2 axis. For t equal to 0, it will be a point. For t equal to 0.1, it will be another point, something like this. There are two, this is a coordinate, x1, x2. So if you plot various points, you will get a diagram. So this is called the space diagram or the solution of the system, you can say. So solution diagram is this. So for if the matrix is this one, then the solution diagram for a given initial, if it is starting from here, it is the diagram. This, it will move in this direction. To start with this initial condition, it will move in this direction, these points. So that is what is given. For a different matrix, the matrix is this. If you start with one initial point, it will move in this direction like this. The solutions are plotted here. And it implies the stability, instability, etc. If it is approaching the 0 point, the equilibrium point, it is asymptotically stable. But here it is always near the equilibrium point, not reaching the point. Therefore, it is only stable. It is unstable. Unstable means the solution is going towards infinity. Here also it is going towards infinity, unstable. This is asymptotically stable because it is coming towards the origin. Here also asymptotically stable. It is coming towards us. Okay. This is for integer order systems. By seeing the eigenvalues and its like real part, we can conclude whether they are stable or unstable. The same thing can be done for the fractional order system, but you have to see the argument of the eigenvalues.
Right. Any other questions? Please ask. You can unmute yourself and speak.
It is a basic topic, maybe.
Sir, one question from my side.
Yeah.
So different definitions are available like Grunwald, Latinko, Cauchy integral formula, and Raymond-Liouville definitions.
Yeah.
So what is the why we are implementing mostly in MATLAB Ausloop approximation?
MATLAB?
Actually, when we are implementing fractional order derivative in MATLAB, so one of the approximation technique that is Ausloop approximation.
Okay.
So people are using that in more in general rather than Grunwald and Cauchy and RL definitions. Any idea, sir?
The approximation, I have not worked on that. But what is the question you were asking? Approximating the Riemann-Leibniz.
Riemann, yes, RL and GL. These are the derivative or integral formulas for fractional order, especially.
Yeah, yes.
So when we are going in as an implementation way, I have seen that mostly they are using the Osloop approximation. That is one kind of IIR filter kind of approximation technique.
Okay. I'm not familiar with this.
No. Okay.
Yes.
So GL and RL and Cauchy all are approximately more or less same type of result they will give or some different kind of?
No, they will give different because the derivatives have some relation, but you can write one solution related to another solution. They will give different values only. Yes.
Okay. So all these three techniques are also used for integral or some or fractional order integral or fractional. Can we use it for fractional order integral also?
Yeah. Fractional order. Fractional integral is the single one. Only derivatives are different.
Okay.
Fractional integral is only one formula. This one. Riemann-Leibniz.
Riemann-Leibniz. Okay.
Yeah, this is the only one integral formula. This is the integral. Okay.
Right, sir.
And the derivative is different. The Riemann-Leibniz derivative, it is dn multiplied operating on integral I n minus alpha. Capito is the reverse of that. First integral, then derivative. So this is the difference, but the integral is the same thing for both of them. This is the integral. But recent times, there are several different definitions people are suggesting. Various types of derivatives and integrals and all that. But for which problem they are applying, that has to be seen. Separately, we cannot apply this all the things to the same problem. They will all give different results.
So, sir, in what way we are selecting these derivatives or integral? Means this is application based or something?
No, it is, see, for example, if you have, as I said, there is a differential equation. For example, a model for an electrical circuit, let us say y double dash plus a y double dash b y dash plus c y equal to something, isn't it? Various current, voltage and all, they can be related in a second order differential equation, isn't it?
Yes.
So some studies are there for which they can because we know that the derivative here, this result, it says that if alpha tends to n, then it goes to the usual derivative, the nth derivative. Similarly, if alpha tends to n minus 1, it goes to this thing. So if you want the second derivative, we can take alpha to be close to 2 from the left side. If you want alpha, if n is 2, then we can take various number close to 2 on the left side. And so if you have any differential equation, we can always replace it with a fractional derivative of because it is satisfied by both Capito and Riemann. So instead of the second derivative, we can put any number of alpha and then do this calculation. So you will get some solution. This solution will be close to this. Due to various reasons, disturbance and all, this model may not give a proper solution, but this may give. Okay, we can fix alpha by trial and error. You give, for example, 1.9 and solve, you will get one solution. 1.95 and solve, you will get another solution. And this also you can solve and get the solution. Whichever matches with the real life data, that alpha can be taken for the, you can say that that is a good model for that particular problem. See, we cannot immediately say which alpha will give the real life, which will be matching with the real life data. So because of the computation is very fast nowadays. So you can give various values of alpha for a given differential equation, and you have real data also. Compare the real data with solutions of various alpha and see which one is close to the real data. So we can say that it gives a good model for the real life problem. Instead of this model, we can select the model with fractional derivative. So this type of studies are also there in the some engineering discipline.
Right, sir.
Okay.
So if any questions, otherwise we will close the session. If any questions, please ask. So one general question we are getting is that can we get your PPT?
Yeah, I will send the PPT to you. Then you can. Okay.
So I think there are no questions from a participant now. So thank you, sir. Thank you. You have covered almost all the basic things from RL,
Yes.
DL, and everything related to fractional. If anyone is starting with fractional, they can easily correlate the things with that technique. And right
Yeah,
now,
definitely.
yes, sir. Right now, fractional order is used in control applications, in image processing, in different areas. It is started
Yes.
different. So I hope that and that is a wonderful session for the participant. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your
Yeah,
time
thank you.
accepting
I
my
will also
invitation.
share my slides and you can share it with anybody.
Yes, sir. Thank you for kindly accepting my invitation for
Yeah.
delivering the lecture in this
Thank
particular FDP. Thank you very much, sir.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Now I'm leaving. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Please.